I was thinking about this. I think when I was falling asleep last night, I thought I forgot about this thought. Let us go here. This is a weird direction of the kinds that we tend to like. There was a DMT trip I had a while ago on that changa thing. So it's a bunch of herbs mixed together. It's not pure DMT, but it's plants that contain DMT, and it's a slightly different trip from the pure thing. But there was this, I think we've talked about this, there was this sense that there was a presence, there were these entities there that I could see them, but if you try to focus on them, it it gets hard to figure out where, the figure and the background is. And they're sort of elusive, but they're always there. It's almost like looking at a parallel reality. Parallel means it doesn't intersect, right? Two parallel lines, they go next to one another, but they don't intersect. There's this like plane of existence that seemed to be there, that had a direct connection, or rather an indirect connection, to what's happening in my world, meaning you could see these correlations. What's happening here is reflected in what's happening there, but there's not a direct line. And it felt to me that what I was going through, all of my experiences, I am in this intense trip. I'm going through emotions and a weird like mixture of thoughts and feelings and whatnot. All of these states that are hard to describe, but it's intense and meaningful and almost feels risky. There are, the stakes are high. You don't know what you're doing to your own psyche. And in that parallel world, there were these entities who seemed to be getting something out of the situation for their own sake. And I got angry at them because I felt used. I felt that they're extracting something by the means of me going through experiences. Like, to them, the purpose of me having experiences is something that I am not aware of, but they're getting something out of it and they don't really care about my situation. And then yesterday, when I was falling asleep in this kind of, twilight zone of you're not quite dreaming, but you're not quite awake, uh, I just thought about how intense life has been lately. I'm moving around and there's like stuff happening at work. I'm getting married next month. Then my
Oh, that's
grandmother,
cool.
yeah, my grandmother died last week. With my friends, there's another death, and then a birth. A friend just gave birth, and there's just all of this stuff. Not to mention a war and the fascist crackdown in Russia. And last time I left Russia, it was this anxiety producing endeavor where we had to erase shit from our phones because people were being searched and their phones were being searched in airports. Now, when I came back to Russia, this never happened to me before the war. Uh, and ostensibly, it's not related. They just said that the photo in my passport doesn't look very much like my actual face. And so I had to wait for an hour for some kind of an extra check. I don't know what kind of check that is that takes an hour. Like, if you have a database, it should, we have technology now. It shouldn't take you an hour to look it up. But I waited there, and with all of the, people are going to jail for calling the war a war. I certainly called the war a war. I'm just hoping that nobody heard of the people who make these kinds of decisions. Um, there are people doing years now for just, for saying things milder than what I've said. Um, so that's anxiety producing as well. I was the only Russian in that situation. So my plane landed, and all of the Russians went through the security check, through the passport control, and I was the last one. And they told me we're gonna have to do an extra check. And then there were other people who were in my situation as well, but they were all migrant workers from like Central Asia. There was this one woman in a burqa, like everything covered by her face, and she was just sighing, and she was angry like everybody was at the situation. At one point, she looked at me and said, "Where are you from?" And I laughed. I'm like, "I'm from here." And she's like, "Well, what the hell? Why are you sitting here?" And I say, "Well, I would like to know that as well." Anyway, did not actually cause any issues. Just took an hour, and then they said, "Okay, you can go." But anxiety producing. And then I'm going to the airport tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna have the same passport, where apparently I don't look like myself. Anyway, so the point is, life has been intense. A lot of things are happening, and I'm like increasing my creative output significantly. I used to publish like a couple times a month, 3 times a month. Now I'm going 3 times a week most weeks. And I'm having one-on-one conversations with my subscribers, uh, which has been interesting and trippy as well. It feels a little like the old internet, the early internet, where actual human connections could be made. That's how I remember it when I was 15. First, you chat with people through text in these like AOL kind of situations, and then you actually meet up and you have a beer. And when you're 15, meeting new people, especially of the other gender, can be life changing. So it like opened the world. So I was just thinking about that as I was falling asleep, and then I remembered that trip, and I thought maybe those fucking things are zeroing in, like they need to get more, to extract more of that substance they're extracting, and for that I need to be having more experiences. Or maybe they like ramped it up a little and they're looking at me going through shit, and they're like, all right, he's still moving, and I'm not like laying down on the floor depressed and crying and breaking down. So we're like, all right, we can increase this a little more. And yeah, a lot of my life is I'm not like the world is in a horrible situation. People are dying in Ukraine and people are going to jail in Russia. Neither has happened to me just yet. And even though I'm trying to engage with all of these horrors on a kind of, I don't know, intellectual, moral level, and again, this is the thing that I'm feeling kind of gross about. Like, what am I doing about this? I'm talking about it. you know well, I'm also raising some money. Like the subscribers that I turned the paid subscriptions on at my Substack, and I'm not taking any of that money. It's all going to be used to buy humanitarian aid to send to Ukraine. But that is like me trying to do at least something. That doesn't feel like I'm actually doing a whole lot still. So anyway, I just had this weird idea. It wasn't articulated. I was just falling asleep, and I had this like a feeling, a kind of a surreal little thought or suspicion that's a little solipsistic, and it was maybe you are given shit to deal with, these experiences to engage with. And if you manage, if you process them, if there's some kind of an output that you create from it, you get the raw information thrown into you as a kind of a module, and then you create an output, you do something with it, and you create something and put it out in the world, and you're like, the module is not like in overdrive mode and you're not about to break. Then maybe whoever is in control of that process goes, let's take it up a notch, we can do more with this. And all of this is happening. I'm talking about whatever, the war in Ukraine, or my personal feelings about a death in the family, but none of that really matters to these shadowy, mystical forces behind the scenes. It's all my interpretation, my the way this process is presented to me, while in their reality they're like extracting oil or something. Me having experiences and struggling with them and trying to do something with and create something out of them is just a byproduct of them extracting something out of us going through life.
That is a terrible paranoid fantasy. It actually reminds me a lot of the Matrix. You know, the premise of the Matrix
Right, right,
was that the evil machines in the future um, need an energy source, so they
right.
stick humans. They make us into batteries, and all our experiences are actually, of course, illusory, and are just a way to keep us staying in our beakers so we don't freak out.
Right, and maybe
Um,
maybe the contents of those experiences correlate to the amount of energy you generate as a battery, right? And
right.
maybe there's
Yeah.
like in the world of those machines, there's like an energy crisis where they're colonizing another planet, and so they need more energy, and that's why we're now dreaming about wars, and then next thing is going to be starvation, and that's just because we need more energy, and so we need to experience more intense shit.
Did you say this in the essay that you wrote for this large newspaper?
No, I didn't say that. uh
Because I was going to say, I can imagine some editor. I mean, Nikita, I think you've already told me what the newspaper
yeah,
is. I don't
I'm
know if
not
you're.
supposed to say it on air.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So I could just imagine some editor like, what the fuck?
That's
But it
actually
is.
my plan B for that project has been, so plan A, I write something and they say awesome and they publish it, and it's ideally it actually has some meaning to it, and then I also get new eyeballs on my stuff and whatnot. Plan B was to write something that really can be published in that newspaper. For this plan to work, it would need to be not just something outlandish, but also maybe a little conspiratorial. And then they don't publish it, and then I publish it under the headline, "This is what the large American newspaper doesn't want you to know. This is what they
Great.
decline to print, but here you're
Yeah.
gonna get it from the source."